Hello, Nicky.
Hi Phil, how are you?
I'm all right. Introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Nicky. I'm 42 years old. I'm a hairdresser and I have been for since I was 16 when I left school. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in March of 2019. I had chemotherapy, mastectomy, radiotherapy. Now on Zoladex for 5 years and tamoxifen for 10 years. I've just hit my 2 years all clear of cancer, which is great.
Congratulations. I didn't realise.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
when did you have surgery then?
September 2019.
Oh, right, yeah. Big. How'd you feel about that? 2 years.
Well, 2 years.
Yeah.
Good. It's weird. I think you sort of have this. I never knew when you hear people talk about their cancerversaries and things like that. I was never sure of when you have that, or is it something you celebrate? But I guess actually it is. It's yeah, 2 years post surgery, and the breast nurse said to me, "We would consider from the time you've had your surgery, your cancer is removed. So therefore, that's when we would say, your years." And I think my consultant, when I saw her a couple of weeks ago, did say to me that as far as they're concerned, I'm cured now. There's this kind of like, you have the 5 year all clear, but she said, as far as I'm concerned, you're cured. Reoccurrence often happens within the first year to 18 months when they tend to see it down at the hospital. She said, so, 2 years, you've done brilliantly well. And it is like, yeah. So I went to London with a friend, went for drinks, had a glass of champagne, and bought myself a pair of Victoria Beckham sunglasses to say well done for living for 2 years.
Excellent. I saw the photos. Was it the Shard? Was it
We
near
went to the
the
Sky
where?
Garden,
Oh,
sorry.
that's it. Yeah. No, my friend had recommended it. So yeah, no, it looked nice. I will
Yeah, we
expect to
thought,
see the sunglasses next summer.
yes, oh, they are. I just wanted a pair, and I thought, you know what, sod it,
Yeah,
treat yourself.
yeah. You're only here once, so
Yeah, well done me for staying alive.
so right. We met in August this year at Future
Yeah.
Dreams House, and obviously there was an amazing bunch of people there who had all survived cancer, come out the other side, and had like amazing stories. And obviously we started chatting about how amazing your, I don't know how to describe it, your control over your hair loss, or rather non-hair loss, and how important it was to you. And I think, because I follow a lot of people on Instagram, and generally most people have either shaved their head or they've lost their hair. So I was I was like, this is amazing. You need to share it with people. So obviously this is why we're talking now. So tell me about how you approached, or how you combined kind of like your approach to your treatment, and then obviously your perspective on trying to keep your hair, because obviously it was really, really important that you didn't lose your hair, wasn't it?
Oh, 100%. For me, when my consultant said to me, you've got to have chemotherapy, that was all I really thought about was, but my hair, I can't lose my hair. My hair at the time was down to my waist. It was super long. I liked my hair. And I thought, no, I don't want to lose my hair. And I think that's stereotypical sort of cancer patient, isn't it? You think of someone with cancer and they look poorly and they're bald. And I thought, no, I just don't want to do that. Having to have my breast cut off, having to go through chemotherapy for a start, having all that toxic, horrible drugs pumped into you, with everything else that happens, your life's kind of taken away from you, isn't it, for that time? And I just thought, I don't want to lose my hair. I knew about the cold cap. I'd heard about it. I'd had a friend that had tried it quite a few years ago, but it was too cold for her. She couldn't cope with it.
Okay, so
And I
just quickly give me an overview of the cold cap, how you found out about it, and what it is.
well, I knew about it. My friend had, my lovely friend Emily, who sadly died nearly 10 years ago now. She was diagnosed with breast cancer at 25,
Wow.
and she did it, and it didn't work. And I can always remember her coming in to see me. She'd had one session of chemo, I think, and she just hadn't brushed her hair. and it was just like a matted ball on her head. And she's like, I need you to kind of comb it. And to be fair, I was quite naive. I didn't know anything about it then. She just said, be gentle. So I just remember washing it. And then I took her over to the chair and I put my comb in it really lightly, and half of her hair came out with my comb.
Wow.
And it was just awful. I just sobbed. She sobbed, and it was just like this is awful. Yeah. And I kind of like 2/3 of her hair came out. And then we kind of just cut it really short, and then she did lose it all. And her cancer came back quite a few times. So every time we then did it, I was a bit more confident in knowing how to deal with her hair, and she kept patches. She had little bits here and there. So we kind of kept as much hair as we could, but it broke my heart to do that. And over the years as well, I have had quite a few of my clients that have had breast cancer and come in and said, can you cut all my hair off? Because that's kind of what I think people think, oh my God, I'm going to lose my hair. Let me cut it short. So I get used to having shorter hair, and then it's not quite as distressing it coming out.
Yeah. What was your friend's name?
My friend's name, Emily.
Emily. I mean,
Emily.
Obviously, that must have been when you went to the doctors, and then they or the first time that the word cancer was mentioned. That was probably in your mind, I guess, wasn't it? About your friend and that moment when you were...
Definitely. And I think that's whenever I've had to do that for people, cut their hair. I had one of my other clients, I reckon 4 years, she had breast cancer, and it came back within about 6 months. And then sadly it had spread to her brain and her liver and stuff. And she just kept, her hair would just grow back. And every time then she'd have to have more chemo, so I shave it off. And every time I just used to get so upset, but also I'd think, oh my God, I could not cope with this. Like the thought of losing my hair, I just thought, for me, that would have been one of the worst things. And I do think some people think it's a vanity thing. And it's like, oh, shouldn't you be more worried about other things like living, for example? But I think it's so much more than just your hair. It's just one of the worst bits, I think, about cancer, for me anyway, with the thought of losing my hair.
So give me an overview of the cold cap, what's involved, and what it exactly does.
Okay, so the cold cap is like a little tiny machine, probably like the size of a mini fridge, that has these tubes that come off of it. I think they either have one tube, or if you've got a newer machine, they have two. So 2 people could be treated at once. It sits beside your chemo chair, and it's attached to a silicone cap, which sits on your head, which is pumped full of like a sub-zero kind of coolant, which goes into the cap and comes back out again. You then have like a jockey cap. I can't remember what it's made out of, like that sits over the top to make it tight, that's got a chin strap so it's nice and secure, nice and tight. I always used to say to people that it was about -10. It feels like that, but it's not. So I think your scalp normally is at a temperature of about 37 degrees. So the scalp cooling reduces that down to about 18 to 22 degrees. And what it does is the blood flow to the hair follicle by about 20 or 40%. So that means it doesn't freeze the hair follicle, but it just kind of stops the chemotherapy, as much chemotherapy drug getting into your hair. And chemotherapy works by targeting all your rapidly dividing cells in the body. And the hair is the second fastest dividing cell, which is why it causes a lot of hair loss. And chemotherapy can't tell the difference between a good healthy cell and a bad, nasty, cancerous cell, which is why all the other side effects come with it. It just wipes out everything. Yeah. So by using the cold cap, and because of your hair, a lot of the time, for 90% of your time, your hair has 3 growth phases, and it's in 90% of the time, it's in its active growing phase. So that's why it will come out, because of the growth stage it's in. So by using the cold cap, the chances are it's basically, stopping as much. It doesn't stop all the chemotherapy, but it lessens the amount, which means you have a chance of keeping some of your hair.
Yeah. Of course, we need to, one of the things you told me when we met was you managed to retain, I think you said 90% of your hair during chemo. 80%.
At 80,
Yeah, right.
I mean, if you look on the Paxman website, they do have like a grid you can go and look on, and it has all the different types of chemotherapy regimes. You can look up what your chances are of that regime working. And they do say that it's sort of anything between, you can retain 50 to 80% of your hair, depending. And there's a lot of factors on that. It can be on what drug you're having, the fit of your hair, whether you can cope with the cold cap or not, the maintenance of your hair. But my one, I said that 8 out of 10 people lose all their body hair. So it was quite a high chance it was going to come out.
Yeah, I think you were telling me that people with breast cancer seem to, or the chemo that breast cancer sufferers are taking seems to affect the hair more than most other chemos.
I'm not sure why that is, because not all chemotherapy drugs do cause hair loss.
Yeah.
And then work different. I know that there's sort of 2 different kind of drug groups with the breast cancer drugs, and one's more likely to cause hair loss than the other, I think. But generally speaking, because it does wipe out most of all of your cells, really, that's why it happens. It is quite a high chance that you will lose a lot of your hair if you don't use a cold cap.
So what are the
cold cap? By your after your first treatment, within a few weeks, your hair starts to come out.
Yeah. So what other things play a part in what other things played a part in you managing to keep your hair?
I think because I was so, I mean, I was obsessed with it. But then I think as well, I had nothing else to do. I don't have children. I was able to step back from work, and I kind of was just at home. So my focus was on me, making sure I stayed well. My body reacted to chemotherapy quite well. I wasn't that poorly from it. So I think I was in a place where my hair was my focus. So I think as well, my hospital, it's getting it out there, the education with the cold cap. And I don't think many people used it. I don't think they had a high success rate, which I now think it's because there's a lack of people that know what they're doing with it and really understand it. And I think you've got to understand something like that to know how it works. So there was one nurse that really knew what she was doing. And thankfully, she did my first fit for me. And when she wasn't around, I did it myself, because it was my second fit that I had done. It wasn't on properly, and I should have said something and I didn't, which then I think I had kind of like a patch around the top of my hair here that really thinned. You could see my scalp through it. Nobody else would have seen it. And I think because I'm tall, people don't look over my head, but I could notice it. You could see it. But I still don't think anyone would have looked at me and thought, oh, you're having cancer. They probably would have thought, oh shit, her hair's a bit thin.
Yeah, the fact that you kept your hair, I think even at the time I was like, it's amazing. You need to share your knowledge, your experience to help other people, because there'll be people hopefully watching this who maybe have just started treatment and might go, well, actually, I don't need to take any drastic measures. I can just do this, fit the cap properly and stuff like that. I know we spoke about how we could get the word out, and I think you were mentioning about maybe educating hairdressers, obviously because you are a hairdresser.
Yeah, I think that would be a good starting point to see. I mean, the amount of people I've spoken to, and since doing the podcasts, and a lot of my sort of hairdresser friends have said, like, I didn't know about the cold cap. And I think really until you go through cancer, I mean, I thought I knew quite a bit about breast cancer and I didn't know anything really. But I think till you actually live something and experience it like that, you don't get it. So, but I think if hairdressers were aware of it, at least, if people went to go to see the hairdresser, say, look, I've got to start chemotherapy in a couple of weeks. Can you just cut all my hair or shave it off? For a hairdresser to be able to turn around to someone and say, look, have you heard about the cold cap? You can, if it's coming from someone like that, I think it is spreading the word out there. And I'm pretty sure that they're in most hospitals. I'm pretty sure I'm sure it's something like about 98% of hospitals. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's available and it's free.
Yeah. And there must be a reason why the hospitals are buying these machines. They're not there just for fun.
for them as well, because I think hair is so important. And whenever I speak to anybody, like they'll always say, oh my God, I couldn't cope losing my hair. I just couldn't cope. And I'm like, yeah, because you don't. And I think, you know, when you go in for chemo, you leave with this massive bag of drugs to combat every single side effect you could possibly have. But actually losing your hair is one of the biggest side effects. So actually, all right, I know it doesn't work for everybody. I know some people genuinely don't care about their hair. They look at it as, well, I've got cancer, I don't want to die. I couldn't care less about my hair. Some people get really sick and they're not going to be able to deal with their hair. But I would just say to anybody, like, give it a try, because actually I know for my own mental, physical well-being, I know that if I'd have lost my hair, my cancer, I hate the word journey, but my cancer experience would have been a lot different if I'd have lost my hair. Definitely. Yeah. I don't think the positive mindset that I did. I think for the fact that every morning when I woke up, the first thing I did was check my pillow. Just like, right, yeah, there's no hair.
Obviously, you've met other cancer survivors. How many of those people managed to keep their hair?
Not many, no. A few people have used it, and I think Paxman would say that if you retain up to 50% of your hair, then it's worked. I think some people think, oh, well, you get patches. I've listened to different people talking and their experiences of it. You know, some people might lose the whole top. You know, you might lose bits and bobs. You can have just like clumps come out. But if you can retain it enough that you don't need to wear a wig, or you can maybe, you know, just put like a little headscarf tied round or something to sort of, you know, disguise any little patches, then it's worked. You're going to lose hair because of the drugs. You're going to have, I mean, mine shedded a lot. It went through different cycles, but I cut my hair up into like a little short bob, and I would constantly look in the mirror and I'd have bits of hair hanging down that I would just pull out because they were annoying me. But everywhere I went on the floor, there was just hair. And I mean, we lose on average, I think it's 100 to 150 hairs a day anyway, that you don't notice normally. When your hair's short, you won't notice it. When my hair was long, I'd get out the shower and I'd pull a massive clump out the sink, like plug hole, and I wouldn't think anything of it. Yeah. But when you're aware of hair loss, I found that quite distressing. I really did. Every time I looked in the mirror, I'm like, oh my God, there's more hair on the floor. And that was, I hated that, but that was part of it. And that I kind of learned to sort of get my head around that and try not to worry about it too much, because it was right. And I still looked at my head and thought, you've still got a massive amount of hair.
So
stop worrying.
How did you feel? Because obviously what you were doing was working. How did you feel when not that much was actually coming out and you were kind of keeping your hair? How did you feel then?
I felt good, but I never took it for granted. Every single time I had chemo, I kind of lived hair wash to hair wash. I washed my hair every 2 days, very gently, and I literally just combed it very lightly. I didn't rub it with a towel. I didn't put hairdryer straighteners, anything on it at all. And every time I'd have my chemo, I'm like, right, got into this little cycle, and it was every 4 days worked perfectly to leading up to the next chemo session. And once I got to the third one, after I'd had that, I came home and I phoned Paxman, because I was like, can I just check that this is working? And they said, you've got this far. If you carry on making sure it's fitted right and you're doing what you're doing, this is how it should be. And at that point, I thought, right, brilliant.
Yeah, because of course, Paxman, obviously, Paxman is the brand that make the machine, the cold cap, isn't it? But Paxman must have been really, really pleased, because obviously, if they've got a high rate of, people not sticking with it, like kind of giving up, then obviously they want to hear successes that they're having, I guess. So were they pleased when you rang them?
Oh yeah, they were brilliant, and they were just like, you can call us back at any time. She sort of talked me through things and just said, yeah, this is everything you're saying is kind of textbook how it should be working, so keep doing what you're doing. And that just gave me a real boost. It's like, right, I was like, I'm halfway through this now, I've got this far, but I still never, every single time I ensured, I did it myself, because I thought, if I'm doing this and it comes out, it's my fault. I can't blame anyone else. I don't want anyone to take responsibility for that. And I guess it was my control. A lot of people will say, before, when they're having chemotherapy, I took the control of shaving my hair off because I didn't want the chemotherapy to take it, and it makes them and it makes them feel good. And I totally get that from their point. But for me, my control was to, I'm doing this, I'm fitting this is all on me.
How was the nurse at that point? You know, obviously when you...
Well, the nurse kind of, in a way, I think they were like, oh, okay, do you need a hand? I'm like, no, it's fine. The nurse that knew what she was doing, I saw her on my first and my third go. And after the third that time, she said, do it yourself. And that's no disrespect to any of the chemotherapy nurses, because they are absolutely amazing. They are like angels. They are so fantastic at what they do. They're there to save lives. Yeah, the chemo nurses, they're kind, they're caring, like angels. You know, they're there to save your life. And I was amazed at what they do. You know, their skill levels is fantastic. They're just calm. They're just the nicest people. And I guess the cold cap, even though it doesn't take a lot of nurses' time, it's something else for them to do. And I guess if they don't use it a lot and it's not being used correctly, they're not going to have the what's the word I'm looking for? Not confidence.
Yeah, they're not going to get results that inspire them to keep using it, are they, I guess?
Back it up to say, actually, it does work. So I guess I got the impression from the hospital I was at that happens quite a bit. And the amount of people I spoke to that were like, oh, what are you doing? How have you kept your hair? You know, oh, they told me it wouldn't work, or they told me it'd be too cold, I wouldn't be able to, cope with it. Yeah. Which I don't think that's fair. I think some people can't cope with it. Some people really can't deal with cold, and that's fine. But I think it should be spoken about, and people should have the option to try it. Most people are just like, wow, I've never heard of the cold cap. I didn't know you could do that. I just think most people, you think chemotherapy and you think you're going to lose all your hair. Or if you could click your fingers and anything happened, that nobody lost their hair to chemotherapy, that would be amazing. But otherwise, I just think that everyone gets a chance to use it. People know about it. And actually, since my treatment, I've got the most amazing consultant. I love her, and I'm going to miss her when I don't get to see her anymore. But she's sort of said she wants to learn more about the cold cap. She said, since she's seen me, it's worked amazingly. And she said that's the one thing that people will say as soon as she tells them they've got to have chemotherapy, they worry about their hair. And I thought that is brilliant. That's where it needs to come from. The first point of call, if the consultant says, look, you've got to have chemotherapy, people are worried about their hair, then you know what, there is such a thing. Give people the leaflets then. Let people be able to take a little bit of responsibility for it like that, to be able to go away, read it, have a look at it. And then when they get to sort of like, your pre-chemo chats and stuff, people are aware of the cold cap. I think you get so much information, don't you? You get your little booklets and all your leaflets, and it's so overwhelming. But actually, if you've got that there as well, I think that's one thing that if you thought, actually, do you know what, I can keep my hair. Let me read that and focus on something that you think that might help you.
Do you remember getting a hair loss leaflet or information?
There was so many leaflets. I didn't read them all, but so many booklets. But I just knew, I thought that, let's not pretend chemotherapy causes hair loss. Yeah. So let's not, sort of tries to dress it up. Chances are it's going to come out. So I'll be looking at the Paxman stuff over anything else. And I read it. I had 2 little booklets and I read it cover to cover. There's just a Dropbox that you just look up your drug combination and it tells you. But I would say most chemotherapy drugs with breast cancer, 8 out of 10 people lose full body hair.
Regardless of how well a cap is fitted.
Chemo works the same by attacking your cells. So your hair, because it does reproduce itself quickly, it will attack it and it will come out.
Yeah. You mentioned to me that Paxman are actually heavily involved in research to obviously increase the success rate as well, aren't they?
Yeah, huge. I mean, they're like the global leaders in scalp cooling. I think it's in like 50 plus countries. And they've recently invested a lot of money into Huddersfield University, where they're based. And they're trying to look at the hair's DNA as to how they can improve treatment to stop hair loss, and to understand why with certain drugs you've got more likely chance of losing it. So their ideal goal is to be, I think they said that they want 80% or everyone to be able to retain up to 80% of their hair during chemotherapy for any type of chemotherapy that causes hair loss. That is their ultimate goal, is to change the face of cancer so you don't think of someone bald and looking, you know, because it does. I mean, you take your hair away and chemo wipes you out as well. You know, people often look quite frail and quite thin and quite pale and look really poorly. And I think as well, mentally for me, to be able to get up every day and look in the mirror and I still looked like me. And when every time someone saw me, they'd be like, oh my God, you look really well.
How do you feel when people said that during your treatment? Did you take that as a...
Well, I was like, well, it was a compliment, but it's also, I was like, well, what did you expect me to look like? You thought I was going to look like this thin, like, you know, really tired, sick looking person. And I still looked like me. I did. I you know, I managed to maintain as well most of my eyelashes, and I mean, my eyebrows had thinned a lot, but I do believe the cold cap, it's not scientifically proven yet, but I do think that helps. Again, but I was really gentle, you know, I didn't touch my eyebrows. I didn't wear any makeup, and you know, when you touch your eye and you go like that, I'm like, oh no, I might pull my eyelashes out. Yeah. But that as well, I think it's not just the hair on your head, your eyebrows are huge. I really started to look at people's eyebrows and they really define your face. Yeah. So I think you strip all of that away and people just, you look kind of like a little, I don't know, I just don't look like a little egghead, you know, just with nothing.
You can... I'm sure you've got a beautiful scalp.
Well,
you'll never know, thankfully. But...
No, and that's it. I think people as well. People, I do get irritated with the mean well people, because sometimes you think, stop trying to mean well. Think about what you say. But I think people will always say that. Oh, but you suit a bald head. Crap. Most people do not want a bald head. I don't have anyone come in and say, oh, can you shave my hair off? You know, quite a few people turned around to me and said, oh, it's only hair. It doesn't matter. You'll suit it. It's time for change. And I'm just like, do not say that to me. That doesn't help. That doesn't make me feel any better. I don't need to hear that. This situation is shit. And you trying to make me feel better about it does not do any good. Hair is important. And I don't believe anybody would want to lose their hair if they didn't have to.
No, not at all. Of course, do you know what actually happens? Because if you lose your hair and then it grows back, from what I've seen, it seems to grow back differently. Do you know what happens?
It can come back. I mean, I know when you use the cold cap, it does temporarily change the DNA of your hair. I mean, I've always had poker straight hair, and I have to say, when it did start coming back through in this sort of area, it did come through with a bit of a curl, but it has straightened off again now. But I'm not sure how that works or why that does that, but it does. It does temporarily shift the DNA. But a lot of people's hair does grow back a bit differently anyway. Some people are grey prior to chemo, and afterwards they're not. Some people's hair goes grey. People would have had straight hair, have curly.
So people wear grey and then get their colour back.
Yeah.
Wow, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I don't quite know how or why that happens, but it can change hair texture.
Share your story, just so, like, you know, if you get one message from a person saying, do you know what, I saw your podcast or heard your podcast and I investigated the cold cap and I chose it just at the right time and I started doing it and I took your advice, and then they keep their hair, it'd be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have had 5 people that I've met through friends of friends or like friends of my clients who have said, like, you know, my friend started, she's got breast cancer, or I had another lady that had got ovarian cancer, and it's like they've got to have chemotherapy and they're scared about losing their hair. Can you talk to them about the cold cap? And I was like, of course I can. You know, I would talk to anybody. And I think when you've actually lived, like we said at the beginning, when you've lived something, I'm proof that it does work. Yeah. And I think that can help people, because they can look at me and think, okay. And after chatting to those people, all of them maintained their hair. All right, they lost some, but all of them never had to wear wigs.
So that was going to be my next question. Did you follow up with any of those people to see?
Yeah, most of those people, you know what it's like when you meet someone that's either going through cancer, has been through cancer, you just have that, you just get each other, don't you? And you feel quite comfortable to have to talk to people. And I think especially people that have not gone down that road yet, I had that prior to me starting my treatment. One of my cousins had breast cancer, and then one of the clients that actually came into the salon, she'd had breast cancer twice. And I went and met them and had coffees. And I think that really helped me to get an inside view into what it was like to listen to, and I know everyone has different levels of how chemotherapy affects them, but to have a little idea of what I was going into, I think helped. And one of the girls had been using the cold cap. So that was brilliant because she was able to tell me so much and stuff probably that the nurses, don't know.
What did she tell you then? What was the stuff that?
Well, the first time she had cancer, she didn't use it and she lost all her hair. And she was like 2 treatments ahead of me. So, but she got to her 4th treatment and she'd had a few patches come up. And the nurse that looked after her that day told her that she couldn't carry on using the cold cap because when you get the patches, it can cause damage because it's so cold on your scalp. Right. So bless her, she had 2 chemos left and then all her hair came out because of it. Now, when I got to my 3rd one, where I'd had like a little area had thinned a little bit, and she said, oh, if it gets any thinner, we've got to be careful. She said, but what we'll do is we'll just put like a theatre cap on underwood to just protect your scalp. So had the other nurse have known that other girl, she could have kept her hair. And it's little things like that. It's just having little tips, little tricks, little things to know how to maintain your hair, how to wash your hair best, just how to kind of just look after it as best as you can. I mean, nothing's a guarantee, but I think it just shows that those 5 women all managed to maintain their hair. So I think, getting a cap fit right, and Paxman website's brilliant. They've got videos, tutorials to show you what to do, how to do it. Yeah. There's kind of, at least I think if you go into the chemo fully armed and understanding what's going to happen and not being frightened to question a nurse if they go to do something, or actually if the cap doesn't feel quite right, to say, I would say to anyone, don't let them turn that machine on or let you have your chemo until you're comfortable that that's fitting properly. To anyone, and that's the thing, it's not just women, it's men. Why shouldn't men be worried about losing their hair as well? Nobody wants to be bald. All right, men's hair, because it's shorter, it doesn't take too long to be able to get back to, your hairstyle. But I would have said for most women, you're looking at a couple of years. I mean, this hair that's come out, I have had this trimmed, but this is 2 years hair growth. So if I'd have lost all my hair, I'd have been back to kind of where I started. Yeah. And you think, going through cancer is shit enough as it is, and then having to wait another couple of years to, if I wanted to grow my hair back to what it was, I'd be waiting 5 years to be able to look like how I did beforehand. But I think having cancer and then other things I've experienced in my life since work's not everything. I've slogged my guts at my job for the last 25, 26 years, and life's different now. I've been through a couple of massive traumas in my life, and I'd like to be able to help people. I feel like I want to give something back. And I think like the buddy thing's good, because actually I think to be able to be hope for somebody else, like we always need hope. And no matter how dark things might seem sometimes, there is always a light. It might be tiny, but we all need hope. And I think to be able to look at someone that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line and think, do you know what? Treatments come on massive. That's the thing. It's the treatment, the science, everything behind the drugs. It's improving all the time. So to look at someone, I mean, I've got some clients that had breast cancer 20 years ago, and it was just box standard chemotherapy, mastectomy, 3 weeks radiotherapy, done. And that was it. No scans, no this, no that. And you think now how treatment is so tailored to you and how much more better it is, and the success rate. I think just, to be able to give someone hope that it's like, look, I've been there, this happened to me, I kept my hair, this is what I did, and I'm here now, and I'm able to be able to, give that to someone. And I think when you have that sort of cancer diagnosis, it is a bit rabbit in the headlights, isn't it? It's just like, whoa. And I think to be able to talk to somebody else and think, do you know what, they're okay and they've done it. Yeah. And I have to say, when I was waiting, I think at some point before I started chemotherapy, I met my husband's parents in a coffee shop in town, and I was telling them about it, and I obviously was sitting there touching my boob, because I don't know why, whenever I talk about breast cancer I just touch my boob. And this lady came over to me And she said, I'm so sorry. She said, I don't like mean to look like I'm earwigging your conversation. She said, but I know what you're talking about. She said, have you got breast cancer? And I was just like, yeah. And she just said, look, she said, darling, I'm 7 years on. She said, I had chemotherapy, I had a mastectomy, I had all my lymph nodes out, I had radiotherapy. And she said, I'm fine. And that was 7 years ago. She said, you're going to be okay. And we were just like, oh my God, it's like she was this little angel that sort of came and just, but that was really like, my God, it really made me sort of, it just gave me a little bit of calm and a little bit of sort of like, and hope. It's like, look, she's fine. And she said, that was 7 years ago. She said, look at where things are now. She said, you're going to be okay. You will be okay. And I just thought, oh my God, that was just so nice. Yeah. And so I really needed that. Yeah. She didn't know me. She didn't have to do that. But I guess it's just that.
What was her hair like?
Her hair was short. But she said it all. And, right. You know, it came back and look at me now, you know, 7 years on, yeah. I'm doing really well. Oh. And that was just really nice. That really did. I was just like, wow, she did not have to do that to me. She did not have to come and talk to me, but she just did. So, and that was nice.
But now you can pass that on to somebody else.
Yes, and I'd love to do that. I really would. And I think we've got an event next month actually at Future Dreams. Paxman are going to be there for the day. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to be doing, but Sam's asked me to go along and be part of it, so that's good. I'm so excited to meet Claire. I've met her on the podcast and I've spoken to her on the phone, but to actually be able to see her in real life and have a chat to her, just see what could come. I'm open to anything really. They're a global company. I fly around the world for them. That'd be quite nice. I'll do that.
Yeah, changing lives. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, changing lives. Just helping people. I've always been like that. I think I've always been someone that I always want to help people, but I feel like that even more now. Yeah. I really want to. And I think as well, it helps. I don't know how you feel, but talking about treatment, talking about cancer, it's a huge trauma to go through, whether you have chemotherapy or you just have radiotherapy or a mastectomy, anything, any form of cancer is trauma. And I think we have to process that. So by talking about it, it helps. It helps other people, but it's also good for us.
Yeah,
I think I'm
a big advocate of talking about stuff. My therapy was talking. That was all I did.
Some people choose. Some people struggle to talk about it, and that's fine. You know, and people go, "Well, I don't want to think about it. It doesn't define me." And I think, well, cancer doesn't define me, but it was a big part of my life. You know, it makes you question your mortality. Cancer, and it's. You know, we need to deal with that, and we need to. Well, I feel like that anyway. I need to talk about it, and it helps me. I think.
Yeah, that is interesting because quite a few people like to say it doesn't define me, but I think that's because it's connected with so many negative feelings. It was funny then just actually listening to you talking about meeting Claire and doing some. Even now, the look on your face is like you get really excited about it, which is amazing. That's like. I'm sure Claire will see that and she'll want to harness your passion to change people's lives. I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so. And that's what I do. I feel like I have passion. Like I say, I love my job, but I feel like my passion now is towards talking and promoting the Cold Cap and Future Dreams, raising awareness of breast cancer. You know, I think
at a high level you will be changing people's lives. That's at the very top of all that.
And you too, you know, because you just think there's 375 men a year diagnosed with breast cancer. You're the only guy I've ever seen talking about it for a start, but ever sort of seen. And you think that is huge. People need that. Everyone needs that, don't they? But I think especially for men, to be able to look at another man, it's harder for a man to look at a woman, isn't it, and relate the same.
Yeah.
So look at, okay, do you know what? Look at him. He's fine. He's okay. He's done it. I'm not the only one.
I mean that's kind of my goal, is to just be I don't want to say a role model, but just someone just so there's a face to it.
Yeah.
Just so there's someone there who's been through it, who you know, for instance, there was a guy on Instagram messaged me and said he was recovering in his hospital bed, typed it into Instagram, and then I popped up hundreds of my pictures of me doing all my stuff, and he was like, wow, wasn't expecting this. Who is this guy? Who is this guy? So, you know, I'm 50 this year, so I'm not going to be as young as when I was actually diagnosed. But hopefully, I don't know. In fact, I'm not even thinking about it, because I went through a period where I need to know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just saying yes to things. I'm meeting people. I'm chatting to people. I'm looking for opportunities. I'm just trying to do more stuff and push myself a little bit more, and just seeing where it goes. You know, not worrying too much about, you know, getting anything out of it particularly. So.
No, but I'm getting so much out of it without even really knowing.
Yeah,
which is why you carry on.
But Nicky, that was amazing. Thank you. I've stopped waving my hand now.
Okay,
take care. See you soon, Nicky. Bye.